although my aim was to practice an interview and get selected in an American company, the decision became very clear, obviously, that rather than working for a bank, work for a Tata Group company. And that is how I was able to get into TCS from IIT.
આજે આપના સાથે આબિદાલી ભાઈ નીમચવાલા ડેલસથી સિયોરીના ટાઈમ પર ઉઠીને આપના સાથે વાત કરવાને આવ્યા છે. આબિદાલી ભાઈનો ઓવર ધ last 2 to 3 decades he's had a very illustrious career. ઘણી prestigious companies ના અંદર પોતે કામ કર્યું છે અને આજે આપના સાથે એ થોડી experiences એની share કરશે. તો આબિદાલી ભાઈ, thank you very much time નીકાળીને આવ્યા છો. શેરે રમઝાનનો મહિનો છે અને it's very early in the morning, and thank you so much કે time નીકાળીને આવ્યા છો.
It is my pleasure. Thank you.
So Abidali bhai, can you please introduce yourself to the audience? કે તમે where are you from? તમે શું study કર્યું છે? and basically a short version of તમે આજે જે જગા પર છો, how you got there.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for inviting me on this webcast. I was born in Bombay and I spent my childhood in Bombay. I went to Christchurch School in Bombay, and then my parents મારા પપ્પાની અબ્દુલ સ્ટ્રીટમાં સ્ટેશનરીની શોપ હતી, and then my parents retired to my hometown, which is Neemuch in MP, from where I get my surname, Neemuchwala. And so I did my high school in Neemuch, after which I did engineering. I went to college in NIT Raipur, and I did my post-graduation from IIT Bombay. Post which I worked for Tata Consultancy Services for 23 years. I was lucky to be at the company when the Indian IT industry was just getting started and scaling up. So I had an amazing journey over there. And I was the CEO of their BPO business, which I set up before I moved from TCS into Wipro. First as its chief operating officer, and then I became the CEO and managing director for Wipro. In 2020, around COVID, like a lot of lives changed, I decided to take up entrepreneurship, and I set up my own venture fund. And now I am an entrepreneur, helping startups both here in the United States. I moved in the United States in the process. And now I help entrepreneurs in India and in the US set up technology startups and help them grow their businesses and companies. It is a little bit of paying back or paying forward, as you call it, because I've undergone all of these experiences and now I share them with young budding.
So TCS, when you started, that was in India ke yahan America આવી ગયા હતા by that time?
No, मैं TCS India में IIT campus में से, it's a very interesting story. I had never given an interview, and everybody who's just passing out has a lot of campus interviews lined up. So, to practice giving interviews at IIT at that time, this is of early 90s, 1991, everybody wanted to get a job in an American company, and there were many American companies coming up. So to practice giving an interview, I found out that આજે કઈ કંપની આવી છે કેમ્પસના અંદર, અને કોઈએ કીધું ત્યારે TCS was not even a known company. TCS કરીને એક કંપની આવી છે, and I went there to practice my interviewing skills, and I was very impressed with the interviewer, who was also one of the 3 or 4 very early founders of TCS, who interviewed me, and he painted a picture to me about how at that time, if you remember, India was in a very bad economic situation. India had sent a whole ship full of gold to the United Kingdom. Girvi mukwane em kehvai to chale, because we were out of foreign exchange. And he explained to me that India has lost its race in manufacturing to China. And now TCS and the Indian IT industry has the opportunity to use the intellectual capital that is available in India, which is its people, to create an entire industry. So it was a very exciting vision. And the next day, Citibank had come, and I interviewed for Citibank, which was an American bank, and I got selected over there also. But although my aim was to practice an interview and get selected in an American company, the decision became very clear, obviously, that rather than working for a bank, work for a Tata Group company. And that is how I was able to get into TCS from IIT.
It's very interesting because ઘણાજન સાથે I've also વાતોના અંદર એમ so many things you kind of fall into by accident એમ આપને એમ લાગે છે કે accident છે પણ એ ઘણીવાર એક એવો event થાય છે which really sets you on a life path એમ and when you're open to new experiences and as you said you were just going out to practice an interview અને ઇત્તિફાકથી તમારો એમાં એક career આખું તમારું set થઈ ગયું.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer that, while there is no alternative to hard work and there is no alternative to skills and focus, but a large part of it is luck. Publicly, we call it luck, but it is also part of the fate. The way our belief system and faith works is that, a lot of things is in the faith, and as long as you keep doing the right things, you get the right results.
So TCS માં તમે કેટલા 23 years, right? You said.
Yes, 23.
અને પછી Wipro. So Wipro માં you joined as the managing director.
Yeah, I joined as the chief operating officer.
Okay.
And then within about 6 months, I was announced as the the global CEO.
Okay.
And then the managing director.
Any થોડી વાત share કરશો where TCS માં you must have achieved a certain level of growth where when you joined a new company you were acquired at that level of talent directly CEO જે તમને લીધા.
That is right. So in TCS my journey was very amazing, and I'll give you a little background of the journey. Very early in TCS, as I said, in 91 I got selected, and around the 93-94 time frame, India was undergoing all of the financial reforms. And at that time, TCS was a very small company, primarily working for the most part for the Indian market. So TCS got the contracts of National Stock Exchange and National Securities Depository Limited, which catapulted India into the electronic trading and share custody services. And I was the project manager at the National Securities Depository project. So the interesting thing that happened is after we successfully delivered that project, working out of Kamla Mills compound in Bombay, TCS got to bid for the Tokyo Stock Exchange project. So Hitachi had won the Tokyo Stock Exchange. At that time, actually the Bombay Stock Exchange, the NSC, was even further ahead. In the stocks, there is a concept called T+1 or T+0 settlement. How fast you do a trade and the trade gets settled with cash. And the most of the world at that time was doing T+3 settlement. Like 3 દિવસ લાગે after you trade a stock for the stock to settle with cash. And because I had experience in digitizing the National Stock Exchange, I was given the opportunity to present to the senior executive leadership of the Tokyo Stock Exchange. And Hitachi no subcontract at the TCS પાસે, and we won that. So because of my presentations, TCS could win a very prestigious overseas project in Japan. And at that time, Japan, and even today, Japan is seen in the forefront of technology always. Most of the technology innovation like the Walkman, which was a big hit in the early 1990s, came from Japan. So it was a matter of pride. And I was asked to go and lead that engagement with Hitachi and Tokyo Stock Exchange. So that's how I went to Japan in the mid 1990, 95, 96. And after I had done that project, I always wanted to move into sales. So before that, I was, as I had done electronics and communication in my engineering, I had always focused on the technical aspects of computer science. But because I got very enamored by sales, I asked for a movement into sales. And I got an opportunity to become the salesperson in Japan itself for TCS, which in a way I say that, it was a very good opportunity. If you can sell in Japan, you can sell anywhere in the world. Japanese logo, they take a long time to make a decision. They make a decision based on building relationship and trust, which is again very important in business. And you learn a lot of those things when you do sales in Japan. So I took over sales management in Japan. And after that, when TCS decided to expand in a big way in America, because I had had good success selling in Japan, a whole team of about 25, 30 salespeople under the new CEO of TCS at that time in 1996, there was a CEO change, and that CEO handpicked me to come to US, and that is how I came to the US for the first time in Chicago. And that was just the starting of the Y2K boom in the Indian IT industry. One of the reasons Indian IT industry did so well and scaled up very quickly was when the Y2K, young logon ne nahi khabar hoy, but Y2K was the change from 1999 to 2000, the new millennium. And all the computer programs were written in a manner where the year was in 2 digits. So it was a big task to change millions of lines of computer code so that computers can work properly. In 2000, when the year becomes 00, it had to become 2000 rather than 00. And that is where Indian IT industry just took off. And I had the opportunity to come to Chicago and sell. So I sold at TCS over there, and then I got promoted. So I came back to Bombay to run the TCS's Western India operations. And again, I was in Bombay in the SEEB's office, very close to Marol, where I ran about a third of the company from there. And then it was a very interesting time again, where the BPO industry was taking off in India. Companies like Genpact, which was a GE subsidiary, had IPO'd, and companies which were competition to TCS like Infosys and Wipro had acquired SpectraMind, and IBM had acquired Daksh. And we saw at TCS that BPO is becoming the next big wave. And I was given the responsibility to chart the strategy for BPO. By that time, I was in the executive leadership team, strategy team of TCS. And I put together a strategy. And no good deed goes unpunished. So I was asked to lead that strategy and execute on that strategy. So I again got the opportunity to build a business all over again. So once I got the opportunity to build the business in Japan, then I got the opportunity to build the business in Chicago in America, and I got this third opportunity to build the BPO business for TCS. And this was around 2007, 2008. And that is the time when the global financial crisis happened. So like the whole world's economy, including India's economy, was going down. And the Indian IT industry's economy is very dependent on the global economy, especially the US economy, because about 50% of the revenues come from US. So at that very difficult time, I started to build the business, and we acquired a company for about $200 million as a platform to do that. And as the CEO of the BPO business, I grew it to about $2 billion by that time, over 80,000 people. And that was very successful. So like when you are successful in your professional career, most large companies keep an eye on the competitors, senior executives and employees to see what they are doing and who's being more successful. So of course, unknown to me, but Wipro and Mr. Azim Premji, who's the founder of Wipro, was planning his CEO succession at that time. So he was looking for executives that he could hire. So I was approached by his office 2-3 times. And, of course, you're busy in doing what you're doing, and sometimes you're not. But nobody says no to have a meeting with Mr. Azim Premji, for whom I have tremendous respect. And he's one of the biggest pioneers of the industry in India. So I had a breakfast meeting with him in London. During one of my trips to London, he was... that was the place we found convenient to have an early morning breakfast at 6 o'clock before I could take my flight. And, as I said, a lot of it is fake. In that meeting, he revealed that they are looking for the next CEO, and nobody says no to be having an opportunity to become the global chief executive officer of a very prestigious company. So from there, the process started, and I got the opportunity, to which I said yes. And that is how I moved from TCS to Wipro.
And are you still with Wipro હવે કે હમણાં હવે તમે when you're in venture capital Wipro મૂકીને પછી આ શરૂ કર્યું કે હવે બે સાથે
Wipro મૂકીને પછી I can do so. As you know, for our community is always a passion to get into your own business. And while I've been very lucky to have a very successful corporate life, there was a time when I would always move and do something of my own. So as I said, COVID changed a lot of lives for a lot of people. Wipro is just to go a little bit back in my personal history, my mother passed away. My parents were living, as I said, in Neemuch, and my mother passed away in 2000. And my father, that is the time I was in Chicago. So in 2000, I brought my father with me to stay with us. And then in 2001, I moved back to Bombay in India, as I said, to take a role in TCS. But one of the reasons also was to be able to stay with my father, because he was not very comfortable at that time staying in the US. And Chicago, if you know, is a very cold city 6 months of the year. So, it is difficult to stay in such cold. And afterwards, when we moved back to the US, when I was starting the BPO business in 2007, we moved to Dallas. So since then, we have lived in Dallas. Because बच्चा school न जाए, so we didn't want to give a life to our children where I am moving around as I was doing before, and their school gets disrupted. So my family always lived in Dallas after that. But because I joined Wipro in 2015, which is a company headquartered in Bangalore, and as the chief executive officer, you need to have a lot of presence in Bangalore which is the headquarters. So guest house, India, they have the concept of guest houses that most large companies have. So they converted a guest house, which became my second home in Bangalore. So I used to commute between Dallas and Bangalore, living in the guest house when I was in India. So when COVID came, it became an ideal time to think in the future, because traveling and all of those things, and a difficult way, although the role is very good and you want to do it, you can't do it all your life. The family Dallas America ma hoy ne apne business apne job headquarter ne office je che Bangalore ma hoy. So I used COVID as an opportunity to make the shift. So I resigned from Wipro and then moved full time into doing investments. And that is when I joined with 2 or 3 partners to create the Dallas Venture Capital, which is what I do now. So now I'm not at Wipro, and I do Dallas Venture Capital. And then I'm in the board of directors, and I'm a chairman of a couple of IT companies. So I still stay in touch with the IT services industry, but my primary focus is startups in the software end.
I want to touch on your VC career, the venture capital નું, પણ એના પહેલા મને થોડું એક તમે point કરી કે બચ્ચાઓ તમારા ડેલસમાં છે, એમાં એ લોકોનું સ્કૂલનું ત્યાં એમ ઘડી મૂવ ના થવું પડે. I want to go into a little bit more detail into that. Obviously, throughout your career, as you said, you've been quite all over the place. એટલે બોમ્બે થી ટોક્યો અને ટોક્યોથી ત્યાં અને એમ. So, how were you able to, did you find it challenging to balance family life? અને એટલે આપના ઘણા family commitments હોય છે, એક આપના દીનના commitments હોય છે, મસ્જિદના commitments હોય છે. So, can you go into a little bit of detail in that?
Absolutely. I'm very passionate about this. Because मैं मानू છું કે, especially when you're in your job or in a business, your customers and your company can live without you. અગર તમને કઈ થઈ જાય ખુદાના ખાસ્તા તો કોઈ બીજું તમારું કામ લઈ લેશે. But your family can never live without you. Because you are unique for your family. So your commitment to the family has to be as high. એવી જ રીતે આપણે દીન ને, because whatever we do, eventually we all believe that આપણે આખિરતના વાસ્તે કરીએ છીએ. So both of these commitments are equally important. And one of the things I learned, and especially this is very true for the IT services industry, technology industry, but after COVID, so every industry is like an IT industry. There is nothing called a work and a life which is separate. I believe that it is a continuum. એ બધું intermingled હોય છે. So one of the practices, many things I did, but I'll give you 1 or 2 examples where how to balance the work and life, which is very possible, ઇઝ જેમ આપણા પાસે કોઈ કસ્ટમરની મીટિંગ હોય તો આપણે ઇમિડિયેટલી કેલેન્ડરમાં નાખી દઈએ છીએ. હમણાં જેમ આપનો મને રિક્વેસ્ટ આવો તો ફોર ધીસ, તો ઇમિડિયેટલી both you and I put it in our calendar, and then we know that we will never forget it and it will always get done. Very early in my career કે ભાઈ ખબર પડી કે આપનો કોઈ મોટો તહેવાર છે ને કોઈ કસ્ટમરની મીટિંગ છે, તો every year in the beginning of the year બધા આપના જે main meetups છે, I will put it in my calendar કે ભાઈ these are the days where I have to be at home. Similarly આપના બચ્ચાઓના જે main events હોય, ફેમિલીના જે main events હોય, ચાહે આપના દરિસ કે મજલિસ હોય ઘરમાં કે બચ્ચાઓના વરસ હોય, કે all of those I put in the calendar. So then even my secretary would know that these days, like if there is one customer meeting, my secretary would never give the same time or same day to another customer for a meeting. Now I treat the family also like the customer only. And then the commitment to the family and commitment to the deen becomes equally important as the commitment to the profession, the commitment to the business. And that I found was very helpful in managing work-life balance, because then you never come into the situation કે આપના ઘરમાં એમ કઈ કે તમે કેવી રીતે મારી આપની એનિવર્સરીના દિવસ તમે કેવી રીતે અમેરિકામાં ઘરમાં નથી ને તમે લંડન ચલા ગયા મીટિંગના માટે બિઝનેસની. કેમ કે મોસ્ટલી એટલે થાય છે કે વી ડોન્ટ ગીવ ધ સેમ લેવલ ઓફ ઇમ્પોર્ટન્સ, અને જ્યારે આપણે સેમ લેવલ ઓફ ઇમ્પોર્ટન્સ ના આપે પછી એ મિસ થઈ જાય છે. સો આઈ ઓલવેઝ બિલીવ કે પછી સેમ થિંગ ઇઝ ટ્રુ ઓન ધ અધર હેન્ડ ઓલ્સો. ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ બચ્ચાઓની પીટીએની મીટિંગ હોય કે બચ્ચાઓના મદરસામાં you have to meet their teachers. So you put it in the calendar. So that 3 hours you go to office late that day because you are doing that meeting. On the other hand, a lot of times there could be cases where working in a global industry, there is a meeting at 9 o'clock in the night. And although it is family time, when you get onto a Zoom call and then you do a meeting with a client. So that's why I always call it is a continuum where work and life is not separate, but it goes hand in hand. And it can be balanced very easily by giving equal importance to both sides of the balance.
It's very insightful. That a continuum, no, is a very interesting way to think about it. You're right in the sense કે કામની ફિકર બી ઘરે લઈને તો આપણે આવ્યા જ છે. So there is balance. It is indeed a continuum. It's a very interesting way to think about it.
કેમ કે જ્યારે આપણે બેલેન્સ સોચીએ છીએ તો પછી તરાજુના બે પલડા થઈ જાય છે. પછી છે ને આમ ઝહેનમાં ફિકર થાય કે તરાજુને આપણે કેવી રીતે બેલેન્સ કરશું. પર કન્ટિન્યુઅમ સોચશું તો હમણાં 10 મિનિટ આપણે આપનું કામ કરી રહ્યા છે, પછી અડધો કલાક પછી કઈ ઓફિસનું કામ હોય એને પટાઈ દીધું, and then come back to our own work. So it becomes much easier. And if, one of the things I've always believed is કે તવક્કલ રાખવાનું, એટલે ફિકર તો કરવાની જ નહીં. કે the best will happen as long as what you are doing is best. કેમ કે ફિકરમાં ઘણી વખત શું છે કે it becomes a little more difficult to balance the two.
આપણે થોડું તમારા હમણાંના વેન્ચરના બારામાં if you'd like to share a little bit.
Sure. તો એક એનું જે વિઝન ને કોન્સેપ્ટ છે is about that, as I said, I was very early in the Indian IT industry and I had the opportunity to help the Indian IT industry grow. At that time, the brand of India was not very visible. Okay, when I remember when I came to the US in 1997, nobody saw an Indian in the US and thought that this is an IT professional. એ જમાનામાં મને યાદ છે કે ગુજરાતથી ઘણા લોકો, lot of Patels from Gujarat and some other places in India had come. Patels were especially very famous in US for running motels. So Indians were seen as people who are good businessmen running motels. Today, if you come to the US, they will say, are you in IT? Are you a computer engineer? So આખું brand change થઈ ગયું છે. But that took a long time. It took almost 20-30 years for the Western world to now recognize people like Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai from India are now the CEOs of the biggest technology companies in the US. But that journey is a 30-year-long journey. However, the whole industry is moving from IT services, where India has been very successful, to software products. Software products, historically, like, a company like Microsoft or Google or IBM, which creates these products, were always born in America. I think in the future, some of these companies will also be born in India. And we are already seeing examples like Freshworks and some of the others, but I'm not ocha example chena. So the whole concept of this venture fund is that we invest in these companies in India with very good teams who understand the market very well and who are innovating. And then at Dallas Venture Capital, we are a team of experienced professionals who've been lucky enough to do some of these things early. And we help and mentor these people apart from putting capital in their business for them to grow their business and learn those things that we took 30 years to learn, in perhaps learn it in 3 years because the world has shrunk. जब पिल्ला अपने इतना time लगता तो कोई काम करवा, they don't have that much time anymore. We call it the 3 C's or the 4 C's. So the 1 C is we give them capital. But the second C is we use our connections. So for example, a very good company in India, when they develop a product, we have the understanding of the American market. So we help them sell in America. So they don't have to learn all over again. A startup is a small business. They don't have so much funds and resources and sophistication to be able to sell in America. So we help them sell in America. So we use our connections. Then the third C is we mentorship, because I believe mentorship is very important in growing businesses. And the fourth C is that we keep them in control. We don't take over their business. They're still the owners of their business. They still are running their business. So control is with them. We bring capital, connections, and counsel to them. So that is our model in Dallas Venture Capital. So typically we invest in B2B SaaS companies. It's technical, but it is essentially companies who are selling to enterprises in the enterprise software. Right. Born out of India, and some of the companies born out of US, but a lot of Indian entrepreneurs who come to the US and start up companies. And they have to have about $1 million in revenue, roughly 5 crore to $1 million in revenue, so that their product market fit is established. And then we help them scale up that business to the next level.
B2B SaaS too is, I feel it's, jittu mein research kidu chhe, I think that it really is the way of the future, especially up the community ma je logo ne, people who are business minded ne, logo ne jawu chhe અંદર ને from my limited experience, I feel that selling to businesses is always is better because they have fatter pockets and they have an actual need for it, whereas wo ek consumer માં એક જણના પાછળ એટલી બધી મહેનત કરવી પડે અને એમાં એટલું રેવન્યુ આવે ને આ એક બિઝનેસ હાથમાં આવી ગયું.
That is absolutely right. I totally agree. And I think the future is going to be B2B SaaS because also from an industry trend, itli moti IT ne BPO companies je bani chhe India ma, a lot of their work also with artificial intelligence and machine learning and all of the new technologies which are coming up, a lot of that work will get automated by software products. So also it is in a manner a question of disruption that will come in. And as you rightly said, especially, in our community, people are very business minded. Once they work for some time, they get the experience of what are the problems that they see in large companies that they are providing services to, and they spot opportunities. And after spotting that opportunity, if we develop this kind of a software, this problem can get solved totally. And you take that idea and then start a business of your own, where you develop that software. Of course, you need some investment because first 2-3 years you have to invest money to develop the software and stuff. But then you can start selling it, and you can sell it to the same people that you learned the problem from. And as you rightly said, selling to enterprises is easier because it may take a little longer in the beginning, but once you are successful, the market is very, very large. They have deep pockets, and you can also be much more profitable. Selling to consumers is also a good idea, but consumers are very price sensitive. So बीजो कोई competition आ ही जाए and they give it for 10% less, computer individual move. अपने जो you India में we saw that Reliance Jio never existed, and they came with a very attractive pricing, and within 3 or 4 years they got launched in 2016, and by 2020 they had 30% of the market share. Because consumer immediately moved, I was with Airtel or I had a SIM from Vodafone, Let me now move to Reliance Jio. So the consumer market is a much more price sensitive market. The enterprise market is more sensitive on customer service. And if you provide good customer service and good customer experience, that's a very sticky market. So then, for a long term, you can keep servicing that customer.
કોઈ યંગસ્ટર હોય આપણા કમ્યુનિટીના જે they are at that crossroads moment in their life where they're considering કે હવે મને શું કરવું જોઈએ. So if you had the opportunity to give them some advice, તમે શું કહો એ લોકોને?
So I would encourage them that first they should think if they can start their own business. And it could be in any area. Of course, I am a technology person, but it could be in any area. And 2 or 3 things which I think are very important is, number one, they should have domain expertise. एक कोई एरिया में लोगों ने डीप समझ होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि डूइंग बिजनेस इज ऑलवेज विद एसोसिएटेड विद रिस्क. तो जे एरिया में इफ वी अंडरस्टैंड द बिजनेस वेरी वेल, आवर एबिलिटी टू क्रिएट अ स्टार्टअप इन दैट एरिया इज मच बेटर चांसेस ऑफ सक्सेस. सो एक डोमेन जो अपने समझिए छे एनाમાં કરવું જોઈએ. Second thing which is also important is we should identify what is the pain point, what is the monetization opportunity in that. Because any idea is only successful in business when you see a market for it, when you see that, I give a very simple example कि अपने human beings હોય છે, अपने बचपन से खबर हो जाए कि मैंने विटामिन लेवानी છે, પણ આપણે કોઈ દિવસ વિટામિન ઓટોમેટિકલી નથી લેતા. વી નો દેટ આપણે એક્સરસાઇઝ કરવાની છે, પણ નથી લેતા. પણ જરા આપણે એમ કોઈ જગ્યા દુખો આવે ને, ડોક્ટર કહે કે ના ભાઈ તમારા બોન્સ કમજોર થાય છે, હવે તમારે D3 લેવી જ પડશે, તો પછી આપણે લઈએ છીએ. કે માથું એકદમ દુખતું હોય તો તરત જઈને આપણે એસ્પ્રો કે ટાઇલેનોલ લઈએ છીએ. સો like human beings, even companies are very similar. They don't take vitamins, they don't take good to have products, nice to have products. They only take painkillers, which is if I don't take this, my business band ho jase. So you have to identify, is your idea a vitamin for the customer or is it a painkiller for the customer? And that is where, in our mentorship, we help them identify. So understanding the domain, spotting a good opportunity, and then having a very clear business plan. How much money I will need, how many people I will need, how much time I will need to develop this idea, who will be my anchor customer. There is a huge importance for an anchor customer. कि भाई कौन એવું છે who will trust me when I don't have the product, when I'm not successful, and who will buy my product. क्योंकि जितलू તમે કસ્ટમર થી શીખો છો, એટલું you can't sit in a garage and understand કે what I need to do. So if you identify these 3 things and then have a business plan to say this is how I will go about it, then you get much more confidence. And also sometimes you have need for money. Not everybody might have enough capital to put in their business. In our community, we have opportunities for Kardan Hasana and very good institutions from where, on a good business plan, there is an opportunity to get capital. There is the venture capital industry where you can get capital. And some people have their life savings also, which they can also put, because always investors look at, we are ready to fund your business, but how much money you are bringing of your own, because bringing money is also sharing risk. So for youngsters, my message would be, identify a good opportunity, use your domain expertise for that. And if there is an opportunity for business, then, there are a lot of members in our community. I am happy to help to come up with a very good business plan and take the risk and start your own business, because there's no limit to success in a business.
Shukran, Abidali bhai, thank you so much. We're just about coming up on time to wrap up kariye yahan.
Ji, thank you very much. It is my pleasure for you to have invited me for this webcast, and I hope it is useful for the audience. And I'm always available if anybody wants any advice or help or mentorship as they're thinking about ideas in the technology and business space, especially in the B2B SaaS area where I have expertise.
Thank you very much.